And so I eat at certain times of the day. And I think I'm actually also hangry. So I don't think it was like client projects. I think it was like, and I was running out of protein. I had to run. And I was like, I have to explain racism,
Oh
and I just
gosh. So
need
I have to
protein.
carry the show today.
No, I'm here. No, no,
Oh
I'm
my
here.
gosh.
I'm here.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about that client issue
No,
you had,
no.
okay, never mind. He's like, absolutely not. Well, folks and wider
We're a
audience
little
out
late.
there, we are a little late, but that happens.
It does.
Yeah, so tonight I'm attending the second uh, installment of this AI series that I've been attending at a local university here, Canisius University, my alma
Kanish.
mater, Canisius. It is a Jesuit institution, so I think I should know this, St. Canisius.
You should.
um, but yeah, it's the first installment, which I talked about last week, was fantastic, and I'm really excited for this one because they actually delineated it out to two different tracks. So tonight they have half the symposium will be dedicated to educators K through 12, and then the other half is going to be for business professionals, government, and healthcare. So
Around AI.
correct. So I will be attending the latter session. Obviously, I am not a K through 12 educator, and there's different things to talk about in relation to AI. But it is interesting because they've introduced me to a couple AI models that I didn't know existed. I mean, I've basically just been using ChatGPT and like a little bit of Bard, but mainly ChatGPT. But they were using Claude, which is
Claude,
more up to date.
Claude.
Yes, I'm gonna look this up right now. Yeah, Claude.ai. So Claude draws on information up to 2023, which if people use ChatGPT, a lot of times it says it's only accurate up to 3.5, I think is only accurate up to September 2021, maybe. I mean, some of it's actually quote old at this
Oh
point.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so apparently Claude is more up to date with things.
Yeah, I think ChatGPT was explicit about we're always going to run about 2 years behind by design. That's not a bug, that's by intent, and they had reasons for that. And then there was, I think, the real reasons were that they had a paid model, and then the paid model for a while ran on up to date information. But
I
the
see.
big, but the big thing is I think the real challenge is this: you can't take the whole internet as the internet is and then shove it into another database for the sake of shoving it into a database. It's like taking the whole body of human knowledge and then compressing it into like another database. So I think what they've been trying to do is figure out how to make ChatGPT work, but using the neurons of the internet real time, like a real brain. And ChatGPT itself is just a learning language model that's real time reading real stuff, not really storing the world's data.
Right, right.
And I
And
wonder how Claude works.
yeah, I have it up. It's Claude.ai.
Okay.
Let's see. Company. Who are
Boom.
you,
Darren
Claude?
Hall. Darren Hall says Grant is always late. What? Darren, how am I always late?
Oh
Who?
no.
What in the world? I'm looking up Darren Hall. Darren, who are you?
You do you not know this person?
Not off the top of my head. I'm a face guy, not a name
Oh
guy. But
no.
I'm going to look up Darren right now. What does
Oh
Darren know
man.
about me being late? Anyways, keep going with Claude.
Um I actually I started jumping to something else already.
Oh,
Um Only because there was something interesting I got in my email today. I don't know when I ever got on this Kevin at promptbox.ai email list, but it's like it just appeared this past week. And I normally don't like read mail that I don't remember signing up for, but the newsletters have been really good. It was that one I forwarded you about that app that you can talk to your documents by
yes, it was
uploading
model. What was it called? Not model.
Mind app or something. I'll find it. Hold on.
Mind app, something like that.
Okay, it was my other email address. Did you
ModPal, ModPal,
Mind Pal?
MindPal,
Yeah.
and there actually are several AI models. I had to actually Google it and find the right one. Um, but it does look interesting. But the paywall, they only allow 3 documents to upload, and then the paywall after that was significant. I was like, oh, they're not going cheap here. This is not the low end of the market, that's for sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's not enough documents to talk to. You have to
No,
like put
no.
all of them into like one document. I am trying to find this thing today because last week
Yep.
um, one of the interesting quotes that was made was from Joaquin Carbonera, who is the head of mathematics at State University of Buffalo. And he said, I think what data sets will do to science is what science did to religion. And I thought this,
What?
yeah, and I thought this was a really interesting way to look at this because then the following day, I ended up having this lunch where some colleagues were having this spiritual debate, I guess.
Oh, bring this up. I wanted to talk about this. Go ahead.
I don't want to talk about it too much, but
Okay.
what I will say is that these gentlemen were, they're like very full science people that like gravity is proven, this is like fact. And I was like, well, isn't science just like a new form of religion? I mean, basically, people in a certain industry, a niche of people, have throughout different centuries or whatever decided this is the data we're going to say is true, this is the hypothesis actually that we're going to believe in. And in science everything is a hypothesis, so that's what all the other data builds itself around, is these things that have been amongst the scientific community agreed upon as the belief, right? And isn't that exactly what any religious sect does? And then to take that further, and basically what I believe professor was trying to say was that, the data set you believe in, like where it's actually drawing the data from, is how you're actually going to see what you believe. So in the same way that,
Because you'll approach it through the lens of certainty, but the data set itself, if you looked at the data, may or may not be proven or disproven.
right. And I mean, I guess it could be extrapolated in other ways too, that, maybe religion or spirituality is something we can't see, but for some reason people will defend that science is something we can see. And then a data set would take that even further, where it's like, we can definitely see the data. Like we know exactly how and why it's coming up with the assumptions that it is, because this is the data set it's feeding off of. Therefore, it can't even go outside of these parameters of this data set.
Well, this is an interesting paradigm because this kind of draws some parallels with my statement that, dystopianism is only utopianism tried to make manifest, right? It changes form. There's something about this statement that is intriguing about AI, but also intriguing about the human design. Religion at the time was science. At the time, it was really ideated and believed in and hammered out. Then what we call science today comes along and disproves some things. I think the best definition of science I've ever heard is disprovability, something that is disprovable. And I like that because when you say science is something that's provable, you could easily poke holes and go, well, until we prove something else. And it's like, well, that's true. Science is the whole body of things that we can disprove. And there have been things about religion, not religion writ large, but there have been things about religion that the latest could, in theory, point and go, well, that is disprovable. We could test it. And then there are other things about faith that are not themselves disprovable, so they're often dismissed as irrelevant. And I think you and I do agree, that goes in the mystic, mythological, aesthetic, spiritual, yet not unvaluable column. Something that's tried and true. And then data sets are just the new shorthand version of what's provable or disprovable. But I think there's some deceit in data sets, and I think that's what you're getting at, right? Data sets themselves might even shortcut us going through the motion of disproving something. We're just trusting it. And in that case, I would agree with you. Data sets could themselves just be a new form of pseudoscience religion. Yeah. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
I mean, I guess data science data sets will force all of us to consider the data inputs and the integrity of those inputs
I agree.
in order to produce, valuable results. Whereas in science, there is there's a science culture right now that,
Mhm.
doesn't allow for any other, or is very tight. It's very, like I said, it's like if you believe in like Newtonian physics,
Mhm.
it's very difficult to sometimes wrap your head around quantum physics or what the quantum or
Sure.
what the newer science is starting to say, because if you're so locked into like, no, everything revolves around this being true because that makes, if you tell me that this isn't true, then that's going to have a trickle effect that like our institutions can't keep up with right now. It would be absolute pandemonium if this new science came out, which is, I mean, when I was growing up, everybody was talking about string theory and
Yeah.
multi dimensions, and Carl Sagan's Flatland was circulating around on YouTube, and
I like
everybody
that
was
one.
like getting into it, right? And I think now we have, that's 25 years ago that I'm talking about. So decades have happened in between a lot of, especially Carl Sagan's work, that
Yeah.
people have doubled down on quantum science, and
Yeah.
it's very different than, the science we grew up with and learned. So
Hmm. There is a risk there that I think is interesting, and you pointed to the basically attribution and sourcing of the source of the data in the data sets. This might be where blockchain and then AI running on blockchain can verify data sets. So a data set is a set
oh,
of what?
um, that's a tough word. Verified data sets. Who's verifying?
Well, the blockchain is verifying that this particular data set is presenting data from original source. What I mean, and that has to be clear. That doesn't mean it's truth. It just means it's reporting data for the original source. The original source could have just made shit up, I mean, but it at least allows you to track it down. And the thing that I think will happen with people with data sets is they will just assume, because humans want to look for efficiencies. They'll look at a data set and the average human will assume it's verifiable enough. And so my hope is that, or what I foresee maybe, is a place for blockchain-based verifiability of original source, and then an aggregate rating of how reliable the source has been over time.
So I think I have a friend, Gary Tay, who is very active on LinkedIn, and he has a project called True Site DAO, and they've been verifying journalism and using like a system that like gives out rewards and all that stuff. So if anybody wants to check that out, True Site DAO is definitely, a lot of smart people have been working on that for a couple years now, and they have some really good you know what it is, SIGHT, True Site DAO. Yeah, they have a GitHub. I
Or
don't
do
think they
they?
actually have a. You know what? Let's give them the LinkedIn. Give you the LinkedIn link. And also, I sent you another link. I guess I can't like send.
Oh no, I got it in the chat. I got it
Yeah, but
right
I
here.
can't. I guess I can't post like comments or whatever. But yeah, this came across my desk earlier this morning. And I thought it was a really interesting article that came out of Cambridge University. I'm sorry, the University of Cambridge. And
And get it together. Okay.
it says, is data justice key to climate justice? And the article goes on to say, Biased artificial intelligence needs human help to avoid harmful climate action, Cambridge researchers say. And they basically said, okay, here. Primary author of the Cambridge Zero, blah, blah, says that individuals with access to technology, such as scientists, teachers, professionals, and business in the global north, are more likely to see their climate priorities and perceptions reflected in the digital information widely available for AI use. By contrast, those without the same access to technology, such as indigenous communities in the global south, are more likely to find their experiences, perceptions, and priorities missing from those same digital sources. So,
Interesting.
oh yeah, good. You have it up on the screen there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is at the crux of what we're talking about is with data sets. Are you including, like, where is that data really coming from? And to have integrity with AI, are you willing to include data that may oppose or differ from your data sets, or do we want these like extremely niche data sets? I mean, it's going to be an interesting spectrum as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and this is and now, we've talked about bias built within AI for a long time. And well, for a little while now. And I've always wondered how that could be, if you get an extremist from the right or the left who happen to write this AI code, maybe you could write bias into it. I get it. But this is a form of bias in architecture or in sociological factors because we don't have a lot of data sets on people from the global south
Because we
relative,
don't include them.
because it's technologically difficult to.
I mean, either way.
Yeah,
It's
the net result is they are not included. Maybe motive is even to include as best as possible, but whether by design or default or sheer laziness on the global north's part, it's difficult to, especially a lot of the groups that are affected in this case by climate change, the indigenous communities, they're not online, generally speaking, for the most part. Let alone have we bridged the communication gap to even value the interview of, hey, how are the seas rising for you? How's climate change? Do they even have a word for climate change? Like, I mean, are they just knowing that their home is washing away? Like, how does that get synthesized cross-culturally? So there are inherent challenges. I don't think there's a concerted. Well, let me ask: do you think there is a concerted effort to block the global South's input into data sets that might affect what we know about climate change?
I mean, I guess to me, that's irrelevant.
Okay.
Whether it's a concerted effort or not, I think that like swaths of data sets are not included because they're not like fiscally incentivized. There was another in that same article. What did they say here? I don't know. I can't remember here. Sorry.
What was the context? I can search it and find it.
They were it was kind of what you were saying. Like the people most susceptible to these events are the ones that aren't even getting their voices heard in this. So for me, I guess what I would like to see and what I think blockchain has the power to do and what I think DAOs have the power to do is you can have niche groups that have even myopic viewpoints. And you can have a data set that really is like essential to what that group believes or thinks. And then you can have another DAO and another data set that might be a completely opposing view. But maybe for the first time in our history, instead of blaming each other as personal individuals, we could actually start to see, I guess what I think I'm advocating for stereotypes right now.
Clicks.
But we would actually start to see, like, not only ourselves being a part of these specific niche can say like, oh, wow, as a community, guys, we all look like this to the outside world. Like this is what the outside world sees when we're, this. And then I guess the relationships between those. And then of course it would be great to have data sets that include everybody. But then I go back to thinking, what's that expression in marketing? If you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody.
Yes.
So, I mean, is it better to, in the spirit of decentralization, is it better to have these, almost like the United States model, like 50 states, but one government? And the whole point of that was we were supposed to learn from each other. All the states were supposed to, be able to say,
But
oh, they're doing it better, or I'm doing it better, or whatever. Okay.
But how to get there? So I'm a big how guy. Like how to get there, because let's just take the example of climate change and global north versus global south. Niche groups, truck owners are us DAO says we want all the carbon footprint, and they put together a DAO. They're all connected to the internet. And they go, well, Jackie and Grant said, niche communities should all be represented, and we shouldn't try to make every community or every DAO equal representation within itself, but we do need everyone to be represented. Then I think of the pragmatic of people in the global south, a group of Amazon tribes that are finally bonding together under the fact that the Amazon forest is just being absolutely clear cut, and they want to form a DAO. And I think, how on God's green earth am I going to bridge A, culture, B, language, C, technological gap, D, then let's jump ahead and explain blockchain power and DAOs. So I guess when I think about the ideal, I don't disagree. I just try to wonder about the how, and I struggle to see it. Do you see how?
I mean, I guess I have two schools of thought on that. One, this has to start with like actual conversations with those people, and if they even want a tech solution, because who knows? Like someone else might be totally right. All our silly tech may be all for naught. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jokes on us. It could be that way. But at the same, I think it really just comes down to, with anyone, if someone shows up at your house and has an offering for you, you have a discussion with them, and then you decide if you're going to trust that person enough to invite them into your home. Are you going to hear more about it? Are you going to want to use it? Are you going to? So, I think it's not an issue of like selling the global North idea to the global South. I think we all have to be curious. We all have to want to learn from each other, and just say like, hey, what are you guys observing? And how are you observing it? Do you have ancestral stories or generational stories that like can provide more context than our systems can? And I think that's, if you go on NASA's website, like they were using astrology to eventually build astronomy, right? They were looking back to these old stories and then matching it with like data and technology that they were developing to explain basically, oh, this is why the story went down. Like, this is why this planet was ruled by fire or whatever, because these elements were found, or like we can actually start to like talk the same language, through this stuff.
Yeah, and you raise a great point. Like, would they even value it? Like, is this white guilt even in some way? We as people immersed in modern society and aware individuals can see the blowback. We can start to care. We get to them, and one indigenous view is very Zen. Like a American indigenous view. Is very like, well, nature comes and goes, and we flow with it. So, like, what do you want us to do with technology again? And it might, in some contexts, just glitch with their ethos entirely to participate in our system, as opposed to just evolve with their own. And when you think about that, it's like, but I want this for you. And
well, that's toxic.
yeah. I mean, it is. It is. I mean, that's the great white hope, that I was convicted with when I was doing development work in Haiti. I finally realized, I think I want this for them. The language is also unhealthy, right? The language is, I think I want this for them more than they want it for themselves. Now, that's defeatist and wrong. the language should be, I think they see this in a way that I don't see it yet. And
yeah, I mean, and I think, technology and humility don't exactly go hand in hand. Um, but
that's a quotable. Wait, what?
but I mean, I think that's essentially, I guess that's what I'm advocating for is like you can have an idea that a solution might be good for a place. And then when you actually get their boots on the ground, start having conversations, you should be prepared to um, learn something, and for everybody, it's, this is a dumb example, but I was helping a friend repaint their kitchen and dining room and living room over the last couple of days. And of course, we thought this was going to be a pretty easy project. And then we start getting into it. And it turns out the previous homeowner, they painted over wallpaper. The wallpaper was put on right over the drywall. So when we started ripping everything off, it turned into a much larger project. And, if you're not, and so my friend started getting like really perturbed. And I was like, oh no, like we're going in the war zone.
Yeah.
Like I need to diffuse the situation. And like, it's like that moment where you're like, I can't smile or be happy. Do I get angry with them? Like, what is going to like keep them even right now?
Yeah.
And I mean, I basically later we talked about it and I was like, even on projects that I work on, like if you're not building in flexibility for something to go wrong, because something always does, more time than you're going to need because you're always going to need it. Like, and I think even with these blockchain solutions or any tech solutions, like if you think you're just going to like walk in and be like, here's it, like time to build and not take other parties into, consideration. I think that's why we're building in the open with the stuff we're doing, because, I want to be challenged. I don't want to just make something. I want to make something that people, enjoy and value, use.
Well, yeah. Or that we do, or that we have the accountability, that we're at least gut checking what we're doing. And well, like, I mean, you gut checked it, like how we were doing the artists. And we do need to circle back and settle that issue and get at least one of these artists up, hell or high water. I think we like talking to each other too much about this stuff, though.
I know. Actually, I did. Well, I mean, the idea I have for it is, I think it's what I've always have, but I just don't know if it's like too controversial, I guess.
Say it. We'll amend it later, girl. Let's go.
Well, I mean,
Jarrett, what you missed while Jackie's thinking is that we absolutely believe that data sets do to science what science has done to religion. We believe that that is perfectly fine, except you can't verify the source of the data sets yet at the moment, so it could just be just as guilty of religion as assuming things as anything else has been. What else did we miss?
that's what, honestly, it's exciting for me from someone who comes from like publishing background. I think when people say consider the source, it's this thing we like throw around all the time, but with data sets, it's going to be like, yeah, verify the source. And I think the worst thing we do now is say like, oh, these sources are legitimate and these ones aren't. Like, I think we're entering a time of even, what is legitimate. And, especially when we bring up this Cambridge article on, the global north and the global south and how we're going to attack climate change and all of this. I mean, I don't know that it's because of a lack of people having access to technology that we don't have some of these voices included in data sets, but it's probably just that the data sets parameters for what they accept as legitimate sources don't include a lot of these people. So
yeah. And Jarrett, you'd appreciate this article right here. It should also be in the comment chain. Jackie found this great article about, will data sets basically help create equanimity across climate change? Will equal representation and voice, and is that pragmatic? Is it viable? And I think the TLDR on that is likely not, but also is that so horrible? I mean, we do need to know what everyone in the world thinks about what affects them, but do they care as individuals is kind of the ethical question. And without asking, we can't know and we shouldn't assume. But it's an intriguing article that's basically making the leap of, data sets basically being the raw material of a AI and how we're trusting. I think people, I don't know how you feel about this, Jackie. People have now a group conscious awareness that ChatGPT has a bias, and B, isn't always right. But C, and I'd love to hear what you hear at the symposium tonight, they kind of don't care.
They don't care because they know they can finesse it, or they know it's a first draft. They're not taking it as truth. Yeah, Jared, and he's, Jared's definitely boots on the ground. So,
Yeah.
um,
There are a lot of sources from the developing world that are not well respected in the developed world. Yeah, why am I going to listen to Billy Bob on the back of a donkey when he's just carrying his only pound of coffee he's going to sell for the season? And what does he know about climate change, or
I
she
mean,
know?
is this
Yeah.
not the quintessential like argument in any hierarchical structure? I mean, I can
Any,
go back to being in
any.
corporate, and the people on the floor are saying one thing, the middle managers are trying to do something different, the people that are higher ups that are, have been off the floor for 30 years, they're making decisions like, and I think specifically when it comes to climate change, the narrative around climate change is always so fear-based. It's always by 2030, if we don't, we're gonna XYZ.
Kiss your
So,
ass goodbye.
I mean, personally, I think it would be revitalizing both to me, like our generation, but also Gen Z and Gen Alpha, to hear lots of different voices on this, because maybe the fear narrative isn't the only one we want to buy into.
Correct. And is it the most action creating? And like we think like fear-based things create the most amount of action in a apathetic public. And it really doesn't. Like statistically, at least on the topic of climate change. I mean, other fear-based things tend to drive action, but they're trying to drive action, and at the same time they're driving malaise. I've never seen anything drive people to act more than vision. I'm just talking to my friend Nicole, and we were talking about the vision and values. And you ask anybody, and I challenge you this, Jackie, like freak people out. When you get introduced to people tonight,
Don't
ask them
threaten me with a good time.
birds of a feather over here. When you shake hands tonight, take a safe opportunity that your first question is, what's your vision?
For AI or just
To the
period?
person themselves. Hey, so like, what's your vision? And then fill in the end for their thing, like whatever's they said they did. Hey, what's your vision? And maybe you could make a little less awkward by saying, what's your vision for AI in your thing? But vision, tell me the vision. No, not what you think it's gonna do.
And also your blood type.
And please lick this wooden stick for me. Drop it in a 23andMe bag.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think vision is LLMs throw a wrench in this whole thing. Oh, large language
LLMs.
models.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
100%.
Florida's doing fine, bro. Florida's gonna be fine. I was outside. We're fine. We get more rain than anybody else. We are doing fine, especially
Floridians will just evolve. You guys will grow flippers or like whatever you need to do if Florida's underwater.
Well,
Like you'll
think about
survive.
this. My favorite apocalyptic vision, and then I gotta go shortly. My favorite apocalyptic vision is Waterworld. Because I could literally be at the beach and like they're like the water's rising. I'm like, so is my boat. Like, I mean, what are we talking about? Like, who cares? But like home prices and devastation. And it's like, well, I mean, I could live on a ship. And when you're in and out of water and you're comfortable with that, especially Floridians, you say they evolve, and we're saying it jokingly, but that's literally, and I think a lot of coastal places, like we're seeing in, what is the micronation that is now legitimately
Tonga.
underwater? Is it Tonga? They're on the blockchain. It's the one that went on the blockchain with their identities, and now they're diaspora. And I forget who they
Oh,
are.
I know
And
Tonga was big in blockchain, but I don't know if that's them for sure.
Yeah, man. Well,
Well, this
whichever it is. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna. I know you have to go,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just
What
gonna
were you
say
gonna say?
I was gonna say this was a great conversation. So I was
I
literally
know we
gonna let
didn't.
you go.
Maybe we're not building it in the open. Maybe we're building ourselves in the open.
I think we're expressing for other people that are thinking these same things.
I agree.
And ultimately, I'll say this as the last bit. When it comes down, if you have to use fear to get people to do things, it may be effective, but it's the same way as like, when you're training a dog not to like you're housebreaking a dog, right? And there's people that'll like shove their dog's face in the urine and like never again and like abuse them or whatever. But then there's other, trainers that are going to use positive reinforcement. They're going to give them a treat every time they go outside or whatever. And it's like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, how do you feel better operating in this world? Because I know I don't want to scare
Yes.
people into decisions and I would rather be positively reinforced myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you feel better in this world? I like that. Let's leave on that. Everyone, this is the Illuminous Jacki Whelm. Check her out at wellness.com. Hit her links there. I'm Grant from Grant Sparks. Catch us every Monday and Thursdays, typically at 3:15. A little
Yeah.
late today, as Darren was so wont to point out. Have a
He
great one,
says you
everyone.
rock now. He just commented Grant rocks. So
Oh, thanks, Darren. Forgive me for not recognizing your name. I apologize. Now you're my bestie. I'll take it. And he
well,
apparently
thanks,
stuck.
Garrett.
He apparently stuck with us through the whole show. Solomon Islands. There it is, right there. There you go.
Ah.
All right, everyone. Have a stupendous day. We'll catch you next time. And don't forget to catch Jacki and I again tomorrow, but on crypto with the beautiful Aussie at 10 a.m. See you guys. Have a great one.